Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often. He'll wipe my tears. Only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes. Certain things don't like to talk about, but I'll always remember. The chaos in my mind turned my heart out in November. I'm surrounded by too many doors, not sure which way I entered. But I'm rocking with my loved ones, let you know that front and center. Found out my skin's tough as leather, I can storm through any weather. Addiction was the hardest battle I ever endeavored. It takes a lot of effort to apply.
Welcome back to the Messages Hope podcast, where the hope stands for hearing other people's experiences. My name is Mike, and today I'm running this episode solo, so it's just going to be me. Today on our podcast, we have somebody who I don't know well. Who have seen you from afar. I know that you're a mother. I know that you have an excellent support group in the program, and I know that you're of service to the program and to other women in the fellowship. So I'm really excited to hear your story. Wendi, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
We're improvising today. Normally we don't do it solo. This is our first one with only me or only Adam. So we're going to wing it. So Wendi, normally we started out with asking you about your upbringing. Where did you grow up? What were your family dynamics like? Did you have siblings? Things like that. Was there addiction in the household when you were a kid? So yeah.
Okay. So I was born in Long Beach, and I don't really remember that part of my childhood too much. So we lived in like Long Beach, Bellflower, Hawaiian Gardens, Lakewood, all that stuff. So it was just, I have one like whole sister. I don't know. Mm-hmm. She's older than me. She's like a little less than 2 years older than I was. So when I was about, I want to say probably about 5, that's probably one of the earliest memories I have. And that's of like getting ready for school, my sister and I, and my dad taking us, and my mom sleeping on the couch with one of those ugly 70s blankets that's like brown and yellow and red and orange, like those ugly knitted ones, and saying she didn't feel well. She was going to stay home from work. When we came home, she was gone. Her and about half of the stuff in the house. So I just remember that, like my dad crying and kind of just wondering like, wait, what? She's gone. What does that mean? You know? And so I don't remember like too much from that time, but I know after that, my dad, we moved to Huntington Beach, and we lived in some apartments, and I remember like having my own room, but I was too scared to sleep in there by myself. So I became very dependent upon my older sister. And so I would always sleep in her room. I'm sure I loved it. I'm sure she hated it, but
right.
So I'm like the clingy little sister. But and then my dad was kind of like, I don't know if my parents were using drugs before that, but I know my dad started like my room became like I had a rabbit, right? And my room became the rabbit's room. And like as an adult now, I'm like, oh, I get it, right? So the room had like all these plants, which I'm pretty sure was marijuana.
Right.
Like
yeah.
As a grown up, I figured that out. But at the time, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I know that we were alone a lot, you know, and then there was a lot of people around. I remember a lot of women that were blonde-haired and big-chested, trying to take care of me. And I remember always thinking, like, you're not my mom. Get away from me. And then there was just always like a lot of people. And I just remember this. I don't know why, but I just knew they were doing something bad and I didn't like it. And so everyone was always doing this kind of thing with their nose. And I remember thinking, if one more person makes that sound, I'm going to punch them right in the face. And I'm like 5, maybe 6, but I think more like 5. So we were alone a lot during that time. So we actually, that was the first time we got... that was the first time I ever got arrested. I was like 5 years old.
What?
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah. So my sister and I thought it was a good idea to take these. There was a Mervyn's not far from where we lived, and like a Alpha Beta, I think, next door. So we took these brown paper bags, like the grocery bags, and we went to Mervyn's and we just filled them with like Barbie stuff, just like so much Barbie stuff, and just walked out. No one looked at us, no one questioned us. And so I just remember that day, like my dad must have been at work, but we were just, I think we went back a bunch of times. And whenever he came home, we had Barbie stuff everywhere. And he was like, what is all this stuff? What did you guys do? So he called the police.
Your dad did.
Mm-hmm. So this is kind of I don't know if it's a joke, but maybe it's part of reality too. But like when the cops came, like I had cried so much that I fell asleep. But my sister, who is a normie,
How much older?
she is a little less than 2 years older. She's probably
so
like,
she was like 7 or 8.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She was awake. So the cop scared the bejesus out of her, put her in the car, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And she's straight. You know what I'm saying? So I missed that part of it. But so anyway, you know, it went on like that for quite some time, just being alone a lot, and just really only having her as my only kind of person that I had at all. You know,
Like a mother
I don't
figure.
Yeah,
That
I
was
guess
it?
probably. Yeah, probably very much so. And then my dad met his wife, my stepmom, and she had 2 little boys who are my brothers. So one is passed now, about 14 years ago, from cancer. He was only 27 when he died.
Wow.
And then I have my other brothers, so they're a little bit younger. So Bobby was the youngest. He's probably about 6 years younger than I am. And James is my living brother, and he's about 4 years younger than me. So once they met, we all moved in to this big house in Lakewood. And I during that time, there was a lot of drug use. I think my sister became kind of responsible for all of us. I think I was probably close to 7, and she was like 9. And then there was a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
So I remember a lot of just like neglect, no working plumbing, like using the restroom in a trash bag, like stuff like that. Getting injured and not going to the hospital. And
Yeah.
I think my sister was abused by the neighbor. Just a lot of that type of thing that I think goes on when there's drugs involved.
Yeah. Do you know now what they were using?
I'm pretty sure it was cocaine.
Okay.
It was the 80s, so, you know.
So they weren't working, they were just actively using?
No, my dad worked. He always
worked?
worked. Yeah. And my stepmom, she was a waitress, so she worked too. She
Okay.
did. But there were times where they'd just be like, I remember she'd be knocked out, like even just like on the floor, like butt naked.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah.
Like she'd be out for like a day, 2 days,
Yeah.
you know, things like that. So let me take some of this water. So I don't know exactly how the situation went down, but I don't remember really seeing my mom very much during that time. But she had met my stepdad, and they moved to Hawaii. So somewhere along the lines, my dad and my stepmom, she had gotten pregnant. So I have a half brother that I've never met or anything like that. He got put up for adoption. So I know we were sent to Hawaii. Something was not right,
Yeah.
you know, during this time. Like my sister and I had lice all the time. We weren't even allowed like on school grounds without being checked by the nurse. And looking back now, I can see like my symptoms were present even then.
Yeah.
Like I was very codependent on my sister. She was the only thing I had. And I remember I remember never wanting to be me and always wanting to be someone else.
Right.
So at 7 years old, I was obsessed, and I'm telling you, with Madonna. I wanted to be her.
Yeah.
I tried to look like her. I would paint my lips red with like a marker and put the little mole and all that stuff. And my dad would be like, "What? Stop doing that," you know?
Yeah.
But I know I just always wanted to kind of like be someone other than myself.
Right. And one of the things that I remember and I can recognize now is like the rejection that I felt then and that I carried with me and then soon soothed with drugs and alcohol later. And it worked for a long time. But I'm sure that that had a big impact on you too throughout your life.
Yeah.
So when you moved to Hawaii, did the living situation get better, more stable, or?
So we lived in Hawaii for probably, I was so young, maybe like 6 or 7 months. I can't remember exactly. And then I remember we were sent back to stay with my dad for a short time while my mom moved back here. Mm-hmm. So then we moved to Fountain Valley. That's where we moved, and that's where we stayed.
Back with the dad?
With my mom. With my mom.
With
yeah. And then so I first lost my mom, didn't know where she was, right, for a couple years probably.
Yeah.
Then we went back to her, and then I kind of like lost my dad.
Yeah.
Because he had this new family. But that's just kind of how it was, or at least that's how it felt.
Yeah.
And then during a lot of that time, my dad's mom, my grandma Pat, we stayed with her a lot. I was very, very close to her as well. Mm-hmm. And she passed away when I was like only 13. So it was like my first 13 years of life. I experienced a lot of like abandonment, I guess, kind of thing. So we moved to Fountain Valley, and I found out probably when I was about 16 that my stepdad he used meth for years, but we didn't know.
Yeah.
He was functional. He worked. I know my parents like smoked a little bit of marijuana. You could always kind of smell it.
Yeah.
But my mom would they would have incense or something, and then my mom would be like, okay, hold on. And you could hear her like brushing her teeth, and like, she never wanted us to like smell it or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think during that time, I had a decent life. Like I grew up in Fountain Valley. I went to Fountain Valley High School, which is right next door to Huntington Beach. Mm-hmm. Spent a lot of time, Newport Beach, Huntington Beach. I grew up there. That's, the electric chair that was on Main Street. It's like a punk rock store. Mm-hmm. I remember the first time I saw people coming out of there with like mohawks and colored hair, I was like, oh, those are my people for sure. Like And so anyway, so during that time, like my sister is older than me, and she's more like olive skinned, and she was really popular. She was really pretty. She played sports, and I wasn't any of those things, So I always kind of felt like I lived in her shadow. Right. Everywhere we went, boys paid attention to her. No one ever paid attention to me. It felt like, ever. It seemed like, and so we, and then, once she was like 16, then I'm 14, and I'm just like the annoying little sister.
Yeah.
You can't hang out with us anymore. You can't hang out with me, and she would say all these, I'm sure it was somewhat innocent, but she would always say like, we found you in the dumpster. That's why you don't have a baby book. Like she had one and I didn't have one. My mom was like, dude, I had an infant and a 2-year-old. Like I'm sorry, but I just didn't have time to make a baby book for you. But like you're the milkman's kid or the cable guy's kid or whatever. So, and then she was kind of mean. I don't know. She would tell me like all kinds of awful things. So I guess I just had even though we had the same life, maybe I just had a really different social experience than she did. I wasn't popular. I remember hanging out with these girls for a short time until they put a note in my backpack that said, "We do not like you. Do not hang around with us anymore."
Damn.
I know. That was in 6th grade, and I could almost cry to this day, 40-something probably years later.
Yeah.
So it just, for me, it was a little different.
Kids are still nasty, though.
Kids are brutal.
My daughters box each other like they're grown women. It's crazy.
We used
and
to
they're
box
mean to each other. They say the nastiest things to each other. And then 10 minutes later, they're best friends again. Mm-hmm. But it's like, it's crazy. Yeah,
she was always bigger than me. So, and she was mean. Yeah, so I would just punch her as hard as I could and then run to the bathroom and lock the door. It was the only door that had a lock on it. Yeah. So
I remember my little brother would chase me into the bath. I'd be hiding, and he'd have a knife, and he'd be stabbing it through the door.
Ah!
Yeah, it was
she never had a knife, but she did try to hit me with like the phone, the old rotary phones. Those are heavy.
Yeah.
Or a bottle of something. I forget one time. Yeah.
So when did what was your first experience like with alcohol? marijuana, drugs?
So you want to know what? Like when I was young, and when I said that we moved to those apartments in Huntington Beach when I was still with my dad, I remember, like I said, we were alone a lot, and so I remember being at like the neighbor's house, like a friend, and her older siblings were there, and I remember I thought they said they were smoking cigarettes off of a can, like a soda can. You know how we do.
Yeah.
And they asked me if I wanted some. So that was the first time I ever took a hit of marijuana. I was probably like 5 or 6 years old.
Damn.
Then by the time I was about 12, we lived in Fountain Valley, so we were locals at the skating rink. I mean, we roller skated, and that's where we met a lot of our like lifelong friends.
Yeah.
Not kids we went to school with, but kids we still talk to all the time. So that's when I think I was at this girl Trisha's house, and we were just playing, and the neighbor was like, "Hey, can you watch the kids? We're gonna run to the store.
Yeah.
Door's open, and you guys can go raid the fridge or whatever." And I remember there was like a Frisbee on the coffee table with like, this probably wasn't much marijuana. It was mostly like stems and seeds and stuff like that. But I remember like we rolled what we thought was a joint, and we smoked it. And then I don't know. I always just had this. I started smoking cigarettes. If my parents, if you hear this, I'm sorry, but when I was probably like 10, my dad smoked. I would, and it was so easy to get cigarettes. There was machines you could put money in.
Yeah.
The cigarettes were not behind the counter like they are now. They were just out in the aisle with like the candy. Like, that's just how it was. So, and I started like shoplifting and stuff like that really, really early on too. Like I said, my Mervyn's trip,
Yeah, and for me too, that I used to steal from cars just to do it. Before I ever did drugs, I stole my parents' cigarettes, and we'd run off, and like somebody had a lighter, and we'd steal the cigarettes, and we'd hide and smoke them and cough and get sick. And it was like that behavior was present, like the defiant behavior, the wanting to get away with stuff. And it kind of made me feel like a part of something. Like we're both, we're running off and like doing bad shit together, And it felt good for some reason,
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Like my sister was there a lot for some of that stuff, but I know it was mostly like me. Like I remember one time in high school, we gave her a brownie that had marijuana in it, but we didn't tell her it had it. She was so stoned, and she was mad after, but we thought it was funny. So yeah, I was full blown like smoking marijuana pretty much every day. By the time I was like in 9th grade, was that like 14,
Did you have the experience when you, probably not when you were 5, but like later on when you were more aware of the effects of it, that you got like a relief? Did you experience that, like from all the negative feelings about yourself and about your situation?
I don't know. I don't remember that part of it for some reason. What I just remember was kind of for the first time feeling like I fit in, maybe. Like, I don't know. I just was always that kind of like those oppositional attitudes, those kind of defiant, oh, you don't want me to touch this? Oh, so I'm going to touch it.
Right.
And not, like I said, never fitting in, always wanting to be someone different. And then I just sort of finally found like those other people that were my friends.
Yeah.
I think it was the first time that I tried meth that I felt that.
Yeah.
That what you mentioned. Just like, oh.
Like the light bulb, like.
This is different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I have pretty severe ADHD. So maybe it was the first time without knowing. And in the 80s, they didn't have that really.
Yeah.
Like nobody, you just like needed to get your ass whooped if you were too hyper or if you were, there wasn't really like diagnosing or not like there is today.
So it calmed you down?
It did. It made me feel like, I don't know, like normal or just sort of like, that was interesting.
Yeah.
But I do remember that by the time I was, so in my, junior year of high school, that's when we found out my stepdad was using. And I guess he had cheated on my mom. So my mom was going to sell our house And that meant we had to go. Well, my sister, I think, was just about 18 by then. So, and she had already dropped out of high school. So my mom said I had to go live with my dad in Redlands. What the fuck is a Redlands?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to know. I was like super
Like,
cool.
how far
punk
is
rock,
it from the beach?
right? Super
all
cool
I
punk
need to
rock,
know.
like
Yeah.
HB girl, hardcore, right?
Yeah.
Stupid, but so I had to do that. So in the middle of my junior year, I moved to Redlands. And I remember, well, I remember wondering, like, how am I going to get marijuana?
Yeah.
Like, if I don't know anyone.
Yeah.
So I remember having to, I don't even know how I had the resources. I can't think about that part, but having to buy like an ounce or something to bring with me so that I would have enough until I could find someone to get
Yeah.
it from. And what is that, like 15 maybe?
That's crazy.
In your junior year or 16?
Yeah.
Like,
That's like traveling when you're full blown.
Yeah.
Addict. It's like, I got to make sure I have enough or I'm not going.
oh yeah. Yeah, that too. So, but I just remember like, I went to Redlands High, and there was, I went to school, like I graduated high school. That was probably the only thing I really like accomplished, but it wasn't like, I didn't really do homework, or like make a super big effort. I just went every day.
Yeah.
Because, that's where all my friends were. That's where I did find a guy you could get a joint for $2, like at
Yeah,
lunch.
yeah.
Like, so it was like, I just went there. We ditched a lot of classes and all that stuff. But I mean, it wasn't hard. And I remember these two like Chola girls that were in my math class. I don't know where this math teacher was at. I swear people were smoking weed. I mean, inside the classroom, like,
Yeah.
and then they were like putting some white powder all over the desk. And I was like, hey, what's that? And they were like, oh, it's meth. You want some? And I was like, fuck yeah. And I'm like, what the hell? Just like, who does that?
Yeah.
You're just a little kid, like
In the classroom.
in the classroom. Yeah. And I remember doing that. And I remember really quickly, like I would have a little bit somehow. I don't remember. The good thing I didn't have much resources, else I probably would have came a everyday addict much sooner.
Yeah.
But I remember as it ran out, I would just be like, where can I get more of this?
Yeah.
Like right away, like licking the plastic bag or whatever. Like seriously,
Yeah,
you know, and like feeling panicked because it was like almost gone or already was gone.
Yeah. So you started buying it from them, or you just used with them?
I just used with them. And then I thought I was a chola. See, I went from a lot of phases, right? I always wanted to be someone else. Like I was a hippie. Like I didn't wear shoes. I had all these like braids and things in my hair. And then when I moved to Redlands, everybody was like chola kind of style. So I adapted that really quick with my Dickies and my Reeboks back then. The Reeboks were cool, you know, and the big hair and all that stuff. I stayed mostly smoking marijuana throughout high school. I dabbled with meth here and there, but I didn't, like I said, I didn't really have the resources, or I wasn't very, inventive yet. I was still a little bit naive, maybe.
You're still a kid too.
Yeah, I know.
So then there's that, you know.
Yeah.
So you graduate high school, and then what do you do from there?
I graduated Redlands High School in 1995. Gosh, that was a long time ago. That's almost 30 years ago. That's 29 years ago. That's crazy. Anyway, so then I stayed in Redlands for a little while. I don't remember exactly what. Oh, you know what? It was a boy, I think. Yeah, boys have always been a pretty serious problem for me as well. Never really had a boyfriend throughout high school. I had a few, I guess looking back, I could say like experiences where I allowed men to use me, thinking that meant they cared about me, and not realizing that, until I did some work later in life that, oh, geez, that's a pattern. Hello.
Yeah.
But, and then I went with this guy. I think I went back to Huntington Beach. And that is where I stayed for quite a while.
When you went back there, did you adapt back to that area?
That's where my best girlfriend, Kelly, we're still best friends. We actually have tickets next Saturday to see Sublime, and we're really excited because
Nice.
it's like old school for us, like super old school with Sublime.
I saw them one time with Rome.
Did you?
Yeah, it was a pretty good show.
Yeah, we used to go to like backyard parties,
Yeah.
and they would play. So I seen
That's
them when
dope.
they were just like not even famous, but usually too fucked up to play.
Right.
Like they would start and then they'd be like, we can't finish because we're super wasted. Like,
yeah.
but anyway, that's my best friend Kelly. We got our first apartment. We were 18, downtown Huntington Beach.
Damn.
And we partied a lot. We smoked a lot of weed. We did mushrooms, a lot of mushrooms. I remember that. Ecstasy. We went to raves, acid, all that stuff. I worked at this coffee shop for a really long time. And when I think I was about 18, almost 19, and one of my other best girlfriends, she showed up at the coffee shop and she was using meth like daily.
Yeah.
And some, I can't remember, but like I knew she was. And so I could not wait like to get off work and ask her if she had some or whatever. And she did. And from that day forward, I became an everyday user, like pretty fast. I was 19. I worked at this little nightclub called Geckos in Huntington Beach. I wasn't even 21, and it was a nightclub. Like it was a bar. Funny story. Actually, Carson Daly worked there when we first started.
No way.
But he wasn't like Carson Daly yet, right?
Right. That's his real name, or was he like? is that
No,
a stage
yeah. I
name?
mean, but he just wasn't like famous.
okay.
Like nobody knew who the heck
yeah.
this guy was, right? Because we worked really closely with like K-Rock, and so that was fun. That was a lot of fun. That's when I was like using daily, and we lived in Huntington Beach. I was living at this time with another friend, and once I started using, we grew apart. Like she wasn't using. She knew I was lying. She moved out, and then some other people moved in, and I lived there for quite a while. And actually, the guy that moved in was my roommate, but he was like selling.
Yeah.
And that was my first kind of like exposure to like, dealing and having so many people around and just like being kind of naive. I mean, I've always been kind of naive in that way. Like I'm too trusting. I'm like just too, And another funny story. I actually met Christian Hosoi around that time. Do you know who that is? Mm-mm. He's a famous pro skater.
Okay, I've heard
Super
the
big,
name.
right?
Yeah.
Super huge. And that, he was started using. That's why he, like, maybe why some people don't know who he is.
Okay, I know who he is
Right?
because
he's like
in
the
recovery
vert
now, right?
He's like the vert champ, So I met Christian around that time and actually dated him just a little bit and ran around a lot and
So with
all the stuff we do.
with that dealer moving in, you were probably a little naive, but also that was a steady supply too, right?
Yeah, it was. I hadn't really been exposed to that, yet at that time.
Right.
Like all kinds of stuff, blow torches and glass and all that stuff we do. And like, just, looking back now, I'm like, wow, I couldn't even imagine doing that stuff. Like, and not like being safe.
I remember being fascinated by all that stuff.
I was too.
Right away.
Maybe that's our generation. Like, I don't know if you're my age, but 40 something years old.
I'm 34.
Oh yeah, I'm way older than you. So maybe that's just part
They're
of
still doing that.
my generation.
There's still
is-
people in garages blowing.
Oh,
pipes
yeah.
right now.
I think there was like that heroin chic, I think they used to call it. Like just that idea of like these, the grunge, like Kurt Cobain.
Coming back.
And, yeah.
That's coming back right now, actually. Just the style, not necessarily the heroin, but
Yeah, and I didn't know really what heroin was.
Right.
I mean, thank God. I would have killed myself with that stuff for sure.
yeah,
No doubt.
I know what it is, unfortunately.
Absolutely no doubt.
But so during all that time, that's like still kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
When did like the consequences start coming into play of your using?
Not long, actually. Like, we got evicted from that apartment. Too much traffic.
Yeah.
So I ended up like homeless.
Yeah.
I had a little pickup truck that my mom had co-signed for me. That got repossessed. Like my sister, my sister and I were inseparable. I mean, she was my best friend. We did everything together. So I didn't have anywhere to go. I remember staying in some like hotel in Costa Mesa on Harbor Boulevard, which is all bad.
Yeah.
And like getting
like
into
Newport
a fight.
Boulevard.
Yeah, like getting into a fight with the guy I was dating, and he locked me out or something like that. And I was like walking down Harbor just trying to like, figure out where to go. And all these all these guys kept like, and so I finally found this donut shop that was open. It was 24 hours. And I went inside and I told the guy, like, can I just sit in here? And he's like, they think you're a hooker. That's why they're doing that. And I was like, oh, a hooker?
You're on Harbor.
What?
Yeah.
So naive. So but I was homeless, and I had not experienced something like that before, and my sister, she would let me kind of come in and out, but she was married. So her husband, who funny enough was also an addict, he didn't want me around.
Yeah.
So I, would be kind of in and out of there. And then I would then I went home to my mom. My mom lived in San Diego at that time. So I got clean, I think for several years. Well, clean, not clean, but like just not using meth, like still using a lot of marijuana. Never been much of a drinker. That apartment I talked about in Huntington Beach, like alcohol was, I downed like some kind of Mickey's 40 or something, thinking I was cool. And then like took some like shots of tequila or something. Ugh.
Yeah.
It was awful. Like I was violently ill. And so I never really cared much for alcohol, but I
had that experience with Jack Daniels.
No fun.
Yeah.
None. But psychedelics, meth, marijuana, pretty much anything I would have done if it was around.
Okay. So in San Diego, were you just like working and partying a little bit?
Yeah, in San Diego, I met my very first boyfriend.
Right.
He was dreamy. We were the same age. His name was Adrian, and he was like blonde-haired, blue-eyed, like skater boy. Like I was smitten from the very start.
Yeah.
And so he didn't use. So I stopped, when I met him, and we like got a little apartment right next to where my mom lived in San Diego, and he worked at like a sandwich shop, and I worked out this little coffee shop in Old Town San Diego. Mm-hmm. And we lived together I think we were together for a couple years, until one day we weren't. Like I came home, he was packing up his stuff, and I was like, "Where are you going?" And he was like, "I'm leaving." I was like, "Okay, when are you coming back?" Like he's like, "No, I'm not coming back." And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like I don't think it had occurred to me until that very moment that he could leave if he wanted to.
Right.
And I was devastated. So I think that was one of the first times I'd ever felt that sort of pain.
Yeah. Well, when it happened when you were with your mom,
probably,
like you probably didn't understand it.
No.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Definitely not. And then my dad, like I said, like he had a new family. It wasn't like we didn't see him, but it wasn't the same.
Right.
He worked a lot. He was taking care of them, which at the time, again, I didn't understand.
Right.
But like he was a father to his stepsons, his sons. We don't call them step. Yeah. They didn't have one. So he raised them, know, and that's noble. But at a young age, you don't have the ability to process that. You just know, like, why is my dad paying attention to me kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then my grandma left, and then, she passed away when I was like 13. So that was really hard for me. And then this. So I walked around like a zombie for a long time. I remember feeling like that. There was some guy, I can't remember. He lived near the beach. I don't remember why, but they did a lot of cocaine. So I started kind of using a lot of cocaine during that time.
Yeah.
But I was like, this stuff sucks.
Yeah.
Like, why is it wearing off already? Why do
Why
I
does it
already
cost
need
so much?
more? Like, I remember just needing more and more and more. It was like there was never enough. Yeah. And then I don't, well, I stayed in San Diego for a long time. Mostly like smoking a lot of weed. When Adrian left, I stayed in this same we had this little, like, I don't know how you would call it. There was like a little house that was like a studio. That's where Adrian and I lived. Then there was another little like 1 bedroom and then 2 little 1 bedrooms, but there was like a gate, so it was like this little area. So this guy, Tim and Josh, we all lived there for a really long time. So I moved like from the studio to the front apartment with the 1 bedroom. And we all were like super close. During that time, we just like, we all worked at night. Like Tim worked the late shift at the hospital and Josh and I worked for the Los Angeles Times. We delivered newspapers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Every night.
Yeah.
Like, and so I did that for a long time. Like when 9/11 happened, I had just came home from delivering my papers. I'm pretty sure I was watching He-Man cartoons and taking bong tokes because it was time for like sleep, like to go to bed. And then Tim came home from the hospital, was like outside screaming, turn on the TV, turn on. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, I remember that. And then, you know what? I don't remember the turn of events, but I ended up back in like coming out this way, like to Redlands, and with another guy that I met that I had been with for quite a while, but it was like a tumultuous, like just a lot of fighting.
Yeah.
He was a cheater, just all that stuff. I didn't know back then that was like not normal.
Right.
I had no idea. Like I just thought that was how it was. That was the only thing I'd ever been like exposed to.
Right.
So we ended up at the Budget Lodge.
Oh, the Budget.
You know that one right there,
do
right
know
where the
that
10 and the 215 meet.
I lived there for a while.
I lived there for quite some time, and again, just really like smoking weed at that time. But there was 2 people that lived next door, the room next door, and I became really kind of close to them.
Yeah.
And then Ozzy and I would fight a lot. That was his name, and so he left. When he left, because he wanted to go back, like to San Diego. That's where his family was and all that stuff. He was unhappy. He came here to be with me, and then we couldn't get along or anything like that. So when he left, I got really close to the 2 people that were next door, and they were using. So this is when things started to really go downhill for me.
Yeah.
Not right away, but pretty quickly. Like I was able to get a job at the LA Times out here in San Bernardino, right here, right up
Downtown.
Waterman.
Yeah.
A little more down Waterman. There's a little like area, but and then I can't remember exactly, but I started, and then I had I worked at Domino's too, delivering pizza. So I had 2 jobs, and I was able to actually get from the Budget Lodge to I think I rented a room from one of the guys that worked at Domino's. But he was a weirdo, so I didn't stay there very long. I don't remember why, but he just flipped out on me and just like I remember him just like taking all my stuff and like throwing it in the street.
Damn.
And again, I was homeless, So for some reason, I can't remember exactly, the sequence of events there, but I think I stayed like without a actual like permanent home. Oh, you know what? My sister had a new husband who is still her husband today, but and they had a little house in downtown Redlands. It was right across the street from the Redlands Bowl. Beautiful, like one of those old houses.
Yeah.
Cool ass house. They let me stay there for a while, until like her husband was like, "You gotta go. You can't be here."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Who the fuck are you? This is my sister."
He's like, we own this house.
How dare you tell her to stand up for herself and that I can't take advantage of her anymore?
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that's what was happening at the time. I didn't know.
Was there like a lot of riffraff going on there?
I was just, I just couldn't, I was able to be like semi-functional maybe, I think, have a job here and there, but not really like able to. I shoplifted a lot to support my habit, things like that. I was just, and I wasn't one of those addicts. Like if I was loaded and you were my family, like I would never ever admit that I was loaded.
Yeah.
Never. I'd be like, "You're crazy. What do you mean?" No. Like I don't know why I just would never was just like, "Yep."
I was the type that you knew because you didn't see me at all.
Yeah.
Like I was just gone. If you didn't see me for a couple weeks or hear from me, then they just knew.
Yeah. That too.
I was too afraid to stand there and deny my using in front of them, so I just ghost them.
Yeah,
So.
I did that too. Yeah, I just would not be around a lot. Yeah, I remember that too. I ran around in San Bernardino for quite a while, and I am. That's way over my head.
Yeah.
San Bernardino is way over my head. Like
Yeah.
I'm like I couldn't even really get drugs in San Bernardino because they'd be like, "Hey, don't bring your white friend, dude. She's a cop for sure."
Yeah.
And I'd be like, "Dude, it's the glasses. I'm not a cop. I swear. Like I'm just fucking, I'm just trying to get loaded. I swear." But that city almost consumed me pretty quick.
Yeah.
I got beat up pretty good once by this big girl, and that was kind of scary. There's nothing I could do. Like I'm a big girl.
Yeah.
She was twice my size, but I was like on a couch, like laying back on the couch. She
Yeah.
just jumped on top of me. There was nothing I could do. But I never really, like I'd been like, hey, you want to fight? Like two people who want to fight each other kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'd never experienced something like that before. And then just, being all around that city and being like, I ended up pregnant. When I was pregnant, these people held me captive even for a minute.
Wow.
And I remember she would hit me. The girl would hit me every so often and say like, "Well, your face ain't pregnant."
Damn.
And I remember thinking like, "What the fuck am I doing here?"
Yeah.
But I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop using,
Yeah.
even when I was pregnant. And so I went home to my mom's house. My mom let me come home one more time to San Diego. And I had a beautiful baby girl.
Mm-hmm.
She's 19 years old now. Her name is Gwen. She's pretty awesome.
That's
Thank
dope. Yeah,
God.
I've seen you with her.
Thank
a few
God.
times, yeah.
That's my oldest. So I have a Salt and I have a Peppa. So I have a black baby and I have a white baby. Okay. So Gwen is my Peppa. She's the oldest. Trisha, but she lives with my sister.
Okay, I haven't seen
Trisha
that.
is my youngest.
That's the one I've seen, yeah.
So when I went home to San Diego, I had the baby, I had Gwen. And before she was even, probably like a month after she was born, I started using again.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop. I think my mom threw me out, if I'm not mistaken. And I ended up in Redlands again. I took her to my sister's house because pretty sure I was going to go shoplift at Walmart or something. And we had come from somewhere where we had been all day and it was really hot. Mm-hmm. So she was all sweaty and stuff. So, needless to say, I think it took me a couple days to actually come back. Mm-hmm. And when I did, they were like, "Oh, she's asleep. Let's not wake her up." Like I said, she lived in that old house. So it was like a wooden porch. Mm-hmm. And I should have known right away that it was like a Tuesday night and my mom was there from San Diego.
Yeah.
Didn't really occur to me, but they would not let me see her or have her. Next thing I know, boom, 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 lots of footsteps on the wooden porch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that the fucking cops? You guys called the cops on me. Really? And I just lost it. Like, I'll never have spoken to my mom that way before, but I just was I flipped out like the victim, of course.
Yeah.
I thought I was the victim at that time. And I really thought my drugs were in the car, but they weren't. They were like right on top of my purse. When the cops came in, I was talking shit to the cops and they were not having it, and they were like, "Well, can we search your purse?" And I was like, "Sure, go ahead. Knock yourself out." Like, and they were right on top.
Yeah.
What's this? That's not mine, I don't know what that is. Somebody put that in there. So that was the first time I got arrested. And that must have been 2005. That's when my daughter was only like 2 months old. And that was the first time I got OR'd, but I didn't have nowhere to go, And so I went to treatment. That was my first time going to treatment.
Court ordered, or just because you had
No,
nowhere to go?
they said if I went to treatment, they as in my sister and my mother,
Right.
that I could have Gwen there at the treatment center if I found one that was for women and children.
Right.
It was like a more like long term. It was in Long Beach. But like, I'm this oppositional person. Like I don't follow the rules. Like I just can't. It's not part of who I am. I don't know why, but so they didn't. They never. They would say like it's visiting. Oh, we're gonna bring her to see you. They wouldn't. They didn't. And then when I was like talking to the counselor about my mom, I was talking shit. Like my mom, she's a fucking liar and da 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 da.
Yeah.
And she's all, yeah, your mom is a liar. And I was like, what the fuck did you just say? And I just jumped across the desk and punched her right in the face. I was like, I'll talk shit about my mom, but you're not gonna.
Yeah.
So I got kicked out of there pretty fast. And I don't know. It was just back and forth with stuff like that for a long time, I think. Able to stay clean for a short time. You know, got Gwen back, I think, for just a few months. Lived at my aunt's house, who lived in Norwalk. She let me come there after I got kicked out of the treatment center. I was able to stay clean for a while. Got a job at the Lakewood Mall, working at like Starbucks or something. I was a barista for like 20 years or something.
Yeah.
But then Gwen's dad got out of jail. I went and saw him for whatever stupid reason. Got loaded.
Yeah.
Had a little bit left over, was supposed to go to court, dropped my kid off at the babysitters in like Long Beach, drove to San Bernardino court. But I had some, but for whatever reason, I couldn't like swallow it or sniff it. Like I had to smoke it
Yeah.
no matter what. So it's just trying to find a way to do that. And I was like more than 2 hours late for my court date.
Yeah.
They're all, yeah, come on in. You're
Yeah.
late, right? So they've already issued a warrant for your arrest.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I go in and he's all, as soon as you cross that little threshold where that little swingy door is, you know?
And the bailiff is kind of creeping behind you.
He's all right.
Yeah.
Turn around, put your hands behind your back. I'm like, what kind of shit is this? What do you mean?
Yeah.
So then I went back to jail and I'm like, I remember being really panicked. Like, but my kid is at the babysitter's, you know, and that was the first time I ever got chicken winged too by the cops. I was at West Valley, you know, in the holding tank, but the lady, like the phone was in the other little cell so you could go out. Like the lady said I could go out and kept trying to call the babysitter.
Yeah.
But then there was like a shift change, I think. And I didn't realize it was a different cop. So when I
Phone's
went out,
right there in cell one.
but I was in
remember
the
that.
one next to it. So the other lady said it was cool, but so I didn't know. So I went out and that lady was like, what the fuck do you think you're doing?
Yeah, yeah.
And I just like tried to tell her and she was like, are you talking back to me? Like she jumped on me
Yeah.
and like I was like, oh no, help.
Yeah.
So it was off and on like that for a long time.
So what did it look like towards the end of the road? Like you have how many years clean now? Like 9, right?
Yeah, in 2 weeks, I think.
2 weeks you'll have 9 or
I'll have 10 years.
10?
And just like on the 7th. Yeah. So just a really like couple, not long. So it just back and forth like that for quite some time.
Back and forth to jail. Back and forth.
In and out of jail.
Yeah.
Got clean for a little while. Got pregnant with the sassy baby. That's the one that you all know and love. She's a little firecracker. We call her Sour Patch because first she's sour,
Sweet.
and then she
Gone.
might be sweet after. But yeah, when I had her, I was able to stay clean. Actually, kind of reconciled a little bit with my sister, and was able to go and stay at her house with my 2-year-old at the time, but she didn't have any idea who I was.
Yeah.
There was no really like CPS involved, so I didn't get to see her ever. My sister was just like, nope,
Yeah.
you don't get to see her, you know? And so I was able to stay clean for a while and get my own apartment, and I got Gwen back, and I had 2 little kids, you know? I think by the time I moved out, I think my kids were like 2 and 4. Got a little apartment in Mentone. And that was the end of that. I don't think I stayed clean very long. And that's when I first started really like, you know, I started selling. I'm super naive, right? Like I'm too trusting. And so I had a lot of really bad experiences during that time. A lot of just like, men in and out, I thought, well, I had a pad.
Yeah.
I had some shit,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking these guys love me, right? They don't love me. I just like, they're fucking driving my car. I had a car, I had a pad, I had whatever, so all that went on for quite some time, until I lost both the kids,
Was that through the DCFS or?
No, you know what?
Just
Honestly,
family?
like Gwen was really kind of a handful, and so I really like, and then they tried to file like a new thing against me, my mom and my sister.
Yeah.
And it became really ugly, kind of, again, like said some really nasty things to my mother. Like I would never, like my generation, you would not imagine speaking to your parents like that unless you don't have any teeth left in your mouth. Like, and it wasn't even like my mom ever had to hit me. I just was
That scared.
Yeah, I just never thought it was a good idea to like piss her off. Like, so honestly, I just eventually I was like, you want her so bad? Here she is. Just have her.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't handle it. Like she really got in the way of my using. Right. And then eventually the little one's dad took her for the weekend and then wouldn't bring her back. Yeah. And so there was nothing I could do.
Right.
We were never married. There's no court order. If she's not in danger, they can't remove her from him.
Right. And you're loaded. You're not going to go to the courthouse anyway.
Just say the word cops and I'm gone. Exactly. So, that it just, at that point, it just became easier to get loaded. Right now, I don't have any kids in my way. So I ran the streets of Mentone for a long time and got a lot of charges, a lot of arrests, a lot of all that stuff that we do. More just, I think mostly just spiritually bankrupt, just completely just dead inside by this time, and I think right before, as I started, like, I think my kids were, I think I was really good at playing the victim.
Yeah.
Right. Screaming at my family, like, why don't you love me? How dare you do this to me? I'm your fucking daughter, or I'm your sister, or whatever. Like,
I would never do that.
What do you mean I can't come around? Like, and just like, why don't you love me? And just this whole thing, right? Without ever really realizing that I was creating my own problems through all of that, and so I went through a lot. Like I like I said, I was really dependent upon my sister as a child. And so I'm sure I had a lot of pretty severe codependency issues probably starting from around 5 years old, So I would always put myself in these awful situations with men, a lot of physical abuse, obviously like verbal abuse, all kinds of just, awful, awful things. That's all the stuff we do when we're loaded, until the last time I remember I started to kind of get this idea that like, this was not what I wanted for my life, or this was no way like that God created me to be this.
Right. Like,
how did this happen to me? How did I have 2 kids? I'm not a mom. Like, how did this happen to me? I remember thinking that, or at least I guess now I know, I'm sure my higher power kind of started planting that seed in my mind. Like, there's more for you.
Yeah.
There's more for you if you stop this. And I ended up in this place in like Redlands, as a matter of fact, where it was just dark and scary. I had been on the streets for probably good 10 years or whatever, I had been through a lot, experienced a lot of like, probably things I can't talk about on the microphone, but like just a lot of violence. I'm not a violent person, but I was around a lot of violent people, blood and guns and knives and robbing and beating up and doing not nice things to people. And
Yeah.
I would always be like the getaway driver, or here, hold this.
Yeah.
Here, hold this for us. Okay. Just to be cool,
Right.
or be one of the people. Thank God I never got any serious charges for stuff like that. But, and in that place, I just remember it was dark and it was scary. And I mean like dark, like the devil, like the
Right.
devil was present there. I could feel it. And I for the first time, I was really scared. I was afraid. And I knew that like, I did not want to live like this anymore.
Yeah.
And so, I called on a few people. I called my mom, but she was like, don't call here again.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I'm going to get clean this time, Mom. I swear. Like, it's like, how many times does your family hear that? Right. Like, I knew in my heart that this was it, but no one else knew that except for me.
Right. It just sounded like another
They
time.
were like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
We've heard that so many times.
Yeah.
Like, we're over it. Like, we don't care. Don't call us anymore. We just want to pretend like you don't exist. So, there was one lady that was the place that we lived at. And the guy, of course, it's always a guy. The guy I was with at the time, he got us kicked out because he was like wrenching on power tools and stuff at like 2:00 in the morning or something stupid. But I was like, but he got kicked out. I didn't get kicked out. So I went there and she said I could stay there. She said I could stay there if I wanted to get clean. And so I think
was she in the program?
she was not.
No?
She was not. She was probably another kind of naive soul, just like me. So I
Right.
don't think she realized like that. She moved from there not too long. I think that town probably would have consumed her as well.
Yeah.
Right? She wasn't loaded, but she would allow people to come to her house, and they were all stealing from her and all kinds of stuff. So I stayed there. Well, when I was in that place in Redlands, my kids were about 7 and 9, or no, almost. And it was almost Christmas. And I remember thinking like, I want to get my kids something for Christmas. But I don't even know what they would like,
Yeah.
and that was the kind of like, that was in December. That's when my mind started thinking like, this is not like, you cannot do this anymore. So that was in January of 2014. I stayed at her house. I got clean. I went, my youngest daughter, her dad said that I could come and stay with them if I was going to really stay clean. And so I did. I moved to Beaumont and in 2014. And then probably about 60 days after I got clean, the cops showed up there. And I was like, what? This is Riverside County. Like, never even done anything wrong here.
Yeah.
It was for something I'd done like 3 years prior in 2011. I went to jail clean. That was my first experience going to jail clean. But by then I had so many priors and so many charges and stuff that like there was no OR, there was no fucking 30 days or work release. None of that shit was on the table. I already had a prison offense. I didn't go to prison, but it's like a county prison they do now.
Yeah.
But it's still a prison prior. So they gave me like an extra year for that. So I got like 24 months. And when I was in jail, like I was clean. That was the first time I'd ever experienced that. Yeah. And when I first went, I did get loaded a few times when I was in jail. That's why I don't have January as my clean date.
Right. So your clean date when you got your first day clean was in jail?
No. So actually what happened was, okay, so I got all that time, but then when I was in jail, I started to see like all these kind of like miracles from my higher power, right? And it like to me it was a miracle. Like, and it really was a miracle. Like, I don't know how to explain it to anyone else, but I actually got an early release.
Yeah.
And it was on my daughter's birthday, her 7th birthday.
I only ever heard of those. I never got lucky enough.
Yeah, I just like, there was dreams. There was like these little like sayings. I would like find this little saying and like, it was weird. I remember I had the wherewithal because I was pretty much clean. Like when I got transferred to Glen Helen, and I knew that's where they did the early releases.
Yeah.
And I knew when they did that, they would stack up those gray buckets that have your stuff in it.
Yeah.
And they would put it on those carts and they would roll them out on early release day.
Yeah.
So when I got there, they give you the little fish kit and I got out the little pencil and I wrote down my bucket number on my paper.
Oh.
Seriously.
From when you were getting booked in?
Yeah, when they were booking me in, right? And so I had that in my stuff. And then sure enough, early release day came around and I was like, dude, this has to be it. Has to be it because it's Trisha's birthday. She's going to be 7 today. And some of the girls were out at church, like out in the day room.
Right.
And when they came back in, this one girl, she's like, everyone's like, did you see the number? Did you see? She's like, I saw one number and I wrote it down. And I'm like, wait. Let me go get my paper.
Yeah.
And she read it out. And I was like, shut the fuck up. That's my number.
Yeah.
No way. And I knew I was getting released, Of course, I'm WW. So, of course, I was like last on the list. I'm thinking they're not going to call my name. They're not.
Yeah.
Oh, but they did. So I got out. And when I got out, I was on, like parole for like a year. And I reported. That was the first time I'd ever like reported, right? Never reported any of those other times. Never done work release. And always had FTAs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Mile long list. And the guy said, you need to go to like a program. And I was like,
12-step meetings?
No, like a treatment.
Okay.
And I was like, residential? And he's like, no, I don't care what you do. I'm like, but why? It's not a drug charge, it's a theft charge. Like, why do I have to do that? That's stupid. At least that's what I thought at the time. So I did that, like a little outpatient treatment, and then start going to meetings.
Nice.
And you don't have a job? Okay, so you can go every day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So I did that. I started going. I went, and the people were nice. There was food. Like they had my first one, there was like what do you call that? Like a potluck.
Yeah.
So much food. And I was like, hey, I could get used to this.
Yeah.
There was coffee, all that stuff. So I just started doing that. Started going to meetings a lot. Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't
Not
have
even
nothing
like
else to do, huh?
yeah, not even a fake court card, a real one. Like that was signed and everything. Then I discharged that parole, and you know what? I started working. That was the first time I had worked in a long time. I worked for Best Buy for almost 10 years.
Damn.
But I just started to try to like get back to where I was.
Right.
It took me a couple years before I was able to see Gwen. And even so, like I wasn't like, I want my kid back. Like she's like 11 years old, dude. She doesn't even know me really.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to just be in her life. And I told her like, you're welcome to come live with me if that's what you want, but I'm not going to force you to. Like that's her home, So she still lives with my sister. That's her mom.
Yeah.
She calls us both mom.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's hard for me, but I can't be mad because I did that.
Right.
She's a good kid. And then I don't know, I just kept doing the next indicated thing.
Right.
Somehow I ended up in college. I actually think I signed up for college on a resentment.
Yeah.
Because I remember I just I want to be a substance abuse counselor.
Yeah.
I don't know why that idea came into my head, but that's what I wanted to do from the day I got clean.
Yeah.
But then
a lot of us do that. Yeah.
I don't even know where that idea came from. Like I didn't know anybody that did that or anything really. And that was before I even had started going to meetings or anything. I didn't even know really. So I don't know. It must have been my higher power. Right. So
I think that idea, why it works for a lot of addicts is drug charges almost get you like better chances of getting hired. Nowhere else is it like that,
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Yeah, maybe that because I
qualified.
knew it was something that like people had. It wasn't like you were expected almost, but it was like common.
Yeah.
Like when I went to a hiring, like when I went to the outpatient, they were the ones that like, that's where I got this flyer for like a job fair.
Yeah.
I went to this hiring fair, and I remember it taking so long, and I only had one like this tattoo at that time, and then like this little baby one. But I remember it took me so long to find something that would like cover this,
Yeah.
Because they tell you all the stuff to do. Don't wear too much perfume so you don't stink. Don't smoke cigarettes before you go in.
Yeah.
Don't do all this stuff or whatever. So
Overdress.
I seen Best Buy that day at the fair, and I remember thinking they'd never hire me. I have so many
theft charges.
felonies. And
normally they don't.
Yeah.
In the retail, if you have theft, you're kind of out
yeah,
of it,
like
yeah.
I applied at, maybe it was like DKNY at the Cabazon.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said, go online, fill out your application. I didn't, because I was like, they're never going to hire me.
Right.
And they called me.
Yeah.
And this lady, Liz, she was my boss. She called me and she was like, hey, we didn't see your application. We really liked you. I was thinking like, me?
Mm-hmm.
You liked me? Like,
Yeah.
what? Why? You don't even know me. You don't know anything about me.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking,
Yeah.
like I'm a loser. You don't even know what I am. But I did. I did the little application and then both places did a background check.
Mm-hmm.
No, DKNY did like a more extensive background check than Best Buy did.
Yeah.
Because DKNY was like, no
Yeah.
way. And they send you a copy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that one had some stuff. This one didn't really have anything.
Yeah.
Best Buy, I went through all 3 interviews. I was like, it's in God's hands now.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. And I got hired. I worked there for a really long time. I think I had about 60 days clean when I started there.
So you mentioned, there's a few different things you mentioned that I feel that you only discovered through the course of doing the step work. Is there anything else that like you learned about yourself through the course of working the 12 steps that you were completely blind to until you did them?
There's a lot of things. I mean, I think, when we first start to get clean, like, I don't think we really can fathom like the depth,
Right.
right? Like I always say, like, I never knew there was anything wrong with me until I got to recovery.
Right.
Right. Cause I thought that shit was normal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I thought it was like everyone acted that way.
Right.
I thought like it was okay to cuss people out when you were mad, like, or to throw things or to yell or to even hit people. Like I put my hands on people all the time,
Yeah.
like I've been abused, but I've also been the abuser.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I don't know. I think like I did like 1, 2, 3, fire my sponsor because, I don't know. Cause they're like not doing enough for me. I don't know. Like, like I really think like for the first several years that you're in, like you don't really know all these things. Like, and I feel like you're just even like 30 days is a miracle.
Yeah.
But like it's not undo, but to let our bodies and our brains heal from, like, for me, in my case, like 25 years worth of damage. Like 30 days is not enough time.
Right.
It takes a long time for us to get back to kind of like, restore to sanity, whatever that is. I don't know if you can restore something you never had, but introduced to sanity. So, and then 1, 2, 3 again, fired my sponsor, and then got another sponsor who is one of my very best friends, and actually the person who said, are you going to talk about being a substance abuse counselor? Or are you going to fucking do it?
Yeah.
So I signed up for school in a resentment because of her. I was like, this bitch, I'll show her what I can do and what I can't do.
Yeah.
So she was actually the one that I worked a full set of 12 steps with. And I think I was close to 5 years clean by that time. I had started going to college that I had seen people doing in the rooms.
You could hit that if you want.
Can I?
Yeah.
Shut the front door.
I should have told you that. Sorry.
Shut the front door.
Go ahead.
So it was funny because actually when I first started going to meetings, I met a lady, I won't break her anonymity, but she was a counselor of mine when I was on like Prop 36 way back towards the beginning, when I first started going to treatment. And I got kicked out of every treatment center I'd ever been to. Mm-hmm. Every single one for something, sneaking in a cell phone. Guess who would tell on me for having a cell phone? My mother. Mm-hmm. She'd be like, the cops would come to her. She'd be like, oh yeah, I'll tell you where she's at. Yeah. I'll tell you everybody. I'll tell you where everyone's at. I'm like, Mom, you can't, whatever. Anyway, another story. So I this lady, I was like, hey, I know you. Mm-hmm. Like, she was my counselor, and I saw what she was doing. She was going to school and she was doing all these things. And I was like, maybe I should try that, you know. That's where I first kind of got introduced to that. So I think I was like just starting college. Maybe I'd been in college for a while, but then I was coming up on 5 years and I was thinking, man, I've not worked a full set of steps.
Yeah.
Like I've not experienced what it's like to be a sponsor, right? Or to even work these 12 steps. So I'm still the same, like, look at me, girl, right? I'm loud because I probably never had a voice when I was little, right? Like I lived in my sister's shadow, right? I'm not like, and I developed that somewhere. Like I didn't know that, right? I didn't know that about myself. I didn't know that I was like, look at me, notice me, I'm over here, you know, kind of girl. And I didn't know a lot of things. Like I didn't know how to be a mom. Like I would talk to my daughter like, come on, bitch, get your stuff. Let's go. Like we're leaving, you know. I just didn't know like how to do any of those things. So as I started to, I think that time I was actually working the steps, like trying to figure out like what all that stuff meant, not just writing words on paper, but really like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
What does this step mean? What are these spiritual principles everyone's talking about?
Yeah. And how can I apply them?
Well, I've been like almost
5 years.
like actively going to meetings and participating and like didn't know what the spiritual principles were.
Yeah.
And so I set a goal, you know, like I want to finish these steps within, I think, like before my birthday, maybe, you know, and I did that.
Nice.
I did that. And then I graduated community college not long after that. And that's where I just started kind of like, I'd never really, like I said, I went to school, but I didn't like have good grades. I mean, I passed somehow, but probably by the skin of my teeth, you know, but I didn't like, never applied myself, didn't know anything about that stuff. And when I started going to college, I was like, there's no way. I'm too old. You know, people are going to make fun of me because I'm old. Like I was 36 probably, I think. No, 37 or 38, close to 40. And I'm like, there's no way, you know. I didn't know anything. I didn't know like double space meant. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you know what that means, but yeah, I mean, I didn't. I was like, what does that mean? 2 spaces on the space bar? I had no idea. My kid was like, no, Mom, it's like this. Yeah. She goes, you know, I'm like, oh, I knew that. Anyway, I started getting like decent grades, like A's. I was getting A's. Then I became like addicted to getting A's. Yeah. Yeah. I had to get an A no matter what. So I graduated community college, like all A's, 4.0. Never had anything like that before in my life. Highest honors.
That's awesome.
With my mom standing on her chair. Nice. Like actually, if you go to Valley's website, I'm there. If you click on academics, there's a picture of me like this.
Damn.
Yeah, with my cap and gown. Still.
That's awesome.
From 2019, when they called out like the 4.0, I stood up, you know, and the guy, I knew him. So I don't know. It's still there. People message me all the time. You're famous. You're on the website. I'm like, I know, it's been there. But, and then, I don't know. I still feel like you barely even scratched the surface at that point. Like I still didn't know, what some of my core issues were. Yeah. And then I got a new sponsor because I started traveling this other path. Like I wanted to be a therapist. Right. I wanted to go into social work, and this person was a licensed clinical social worker. So, which at the time I had no idea what that even meant. Right. Really. You know, I didn't know how to go to like a 4-year college or any of that, but I did. I started going. Luckily they have like student centers and all that fun stuff. Like those kids were so good to me. Like they taught me how to do so much stuff, register for classes, do all that stuff.
Are you still in school right now?
No, sir.
You're done?
I'm done. So actually, so in 2016, I started community college. I just wanted to be a counselor. I didn't know what it meant to like have an AA or to go to a 4-year college. When I first started, they ask you that. Yeah. Do you want to transfer? And I was like, I don't know what that means. Yeah. So let me just like go to school for a little while and then we'll figure that out, I guess. Right. Yeah. So then as you go like to the substance use like classes and stuff, you start meeting people. A lot of people are in recovery.
Yeah.
So then you like kind of start building maybe like this little network of people and meeting people. And that's actually where I met my boyfriend. He only went to college maybe for like 30 days. He's a truck driver. So he's like, yeah, this
That's
is
cool though.
He's
Because
like,
he decided to go to school. You met him, and
exactly.
now you guys,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other story on its own, but that's okay. Here we are. And that was probably in like 2017 when I met him. He had like 60 days clean. He just celebrated 7 years. So
Awesome.
yeah. So I graduated in 2019, and as I built like kind of that little network, I started working in treatment, and then I started seeing letters behind people's names, LMFT, LCSW. I knew that they were doing the stuff that I wanted to do, like therapy. They were the ones like signing off on everything. Counselors were doing like the grunt work.
Yeah.
Somehow I knew like I wanted to move up. You know, I wanted to do like therapy with people. I wanted to get into the more like deeper stuff. Mm-hmm. So I had a friend who told me about social work, and he worked at Cal State, and he helped me with my application to get into a bachelor's program. I listened to the counselors all the way through community college, so I didn't take even a fraction of the right classes. Mm-hmm. And they still accepted me to this program, even though I needed like, I think 6 classes. So I had to take those on top of my regular classes if I wanted to be in this program. But I did all that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and in 2021, right? Yeah, because it was right after COVID. We didn't get a graduation. I got a bachelor's degree in social work.
Damn.
Yeah, in 2021. And then I knew that if I took a break from school, I would never go back. So I had to go full steam ahead. I knew that. Now I'm starting to learn like what all this stuff means. I want this L. I want to be a licensed clinical social worker. And they, when you're in social work, like if you have your bachelor's in it, then your master's program, they have what they call advanced standing. So you can get your master's in like 1 year.
Damn.
Yeah. So we didn't have that at Cal State in San Bernardino. So I was applying to all these other schools, and they announced it in like December after the application was open since October that they were going to have it. So we got to be the first class.
Damn.
You could call it, some people say we're the pioneers. Sometimes I think we were the guinea pigs.
Right.
Right? Because it was a mess. There was all these things it was the first time they had that program. So there was all these things we all had to learn that like we didn't know. Like we were supposed to start in summer. When they opened the program, they admitted us for fall. So we're all over here like trying to sign up for these summer classes, and it's not working, and no one can figure out why.
Yeah.
Until someone was like, oh my gosh, they're not admitted for summer. Duh. So anyway, and then 2022, I graduated with a master's degree in social work.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's dope.
And so for the last 2 years, I have been gaining those hours,
Right.
experience hours. And I just got all of that done. So this is 8 years in the making.
Damn.
Right? 6 years of school, 2 years of experience. I just submitted my application to the Board of Behavioral Sciences on like June 7th.
That's dope.
They take forever.
Yeah.
So it's like 90 days. So I'm like halfway through maybe like the waiting period.
Yeah.
So the next step is to get...
Footwork's done.
Huh?
The footwork's done.
It's done. Well, I still got to take the test.
Oh, okay.
State test, which makes me want to vomit. I get so nervous.
Yeah.
So as soon as they send that, I take the test, and it's all money.
Yeah.
You know, it's more and more money. California is crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting for that. And, you know, these last 2 years, I've worked at several different places, you know, but right now I'm kind of like working for a place where I'm sort of like it's like private practice, but it's not. It's like this big company, but I get to kind of manage my own clients.
Nice.
You know, like when you work in treatment, they give you clients. That's who you get.
Yeah.
Right. So like as almost like an independent clinician, I get to kind of see the people that I think I could help the most.
Right.
You know, and that kind of stuff. And you know what? I think it's in these last few years that I've started to discover myself inside.
Right.
Maybe because I'm a therapist, I've like learned all these things about humans and the way we work. And I'm like, holy cow.
That's what's going on. Yeah.
Aha. You know, but also through step work, you know, and just like, I think, you know, when we do step like 4 and 5, so I worked a full set with that. That was my second sponsor or my third sponsor. I can't remember. Anyway, and then I got a new sponsor and I worked a full set of 12 steps with her as well. And when I was reading her my 4th step, I remember there was a few things, you know, they listen for like some of your character defects and things like that, and your assets too, right? We never want to forget our assets, but there was a few things she pointed out, like about food, like food being a comfort, like just some different things that I didn't see. Different
patterns.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
You know, but I just finished another set on codependency. My friend told me I should get a book, right? This man that I love so much. And I have had a pretty tumultuous relationship off and on for like 6 years. You know, this last time we spent like 2 years apart. But it was it's in those times of pain that we seek solution, right? So I think a friend of mine was like, you should get this codependency book. I'm using it. And I bought it and it sat on my dresser for probably 2 years.
Yeah.
Until again, I was in enough pain to open it.
Right.
And start reading it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this was written about me 100%. And when I wrote a 4th step, because I seem to have a pretty operational life outside of like intimate relationships.
Yeah.
That I don't know how to deal with. So when I wrote that 4th step, I was able to see a lot of things about myself that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
I didn't know what codependency was. I thought that just meant like I can't go to dinner by myself. I got to have someone go with
me.
me.
Like you're clingy.
Yeah. But it's so much more than that. It's deep. It's really deep. And it comes from that early abandonment, you know, as a child. Like my mom was a good mom. I don't blame her. She did the best that she could do. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that didn't happen to me. Right. It still happened to me and I still have the scars of that. So it's good to have like, I can ask her questions about that time, you know, and I know she gets defensive and I'm like, Mom, I don't blame you. Not one bit. Right. I'm a grown up. It's my responsibility.
No, it is. Yeah.
It's now my responsibility to say, look, my parents are human. They were kids.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents were like 23 and 25 when they started having us. That's super young. Like you don't know anything yet.
Yeah.
Your brain's not even fully developed.
You don't know anything and you think you know everything.
Yeah. You know, so I knew that like I said, I thought like I didn't know anything about ADD, you know, and then when I started working as a therapist, I learned like I didn't know that it wasn't normal to wake up every hour or 2 hours a night, every night, like to not sleep through the night. Like I didn't even know that people did that.
Yeah.
Like who sleeps a full 8 to 10 hours without waking up? Like that's crazy. I don't think I've ever experienced that in my life. So I started learning things, you know, and even just in college, like you have to take like psychology and things like that. Like I didn't know anything.
That people aren't as unpredictable as you thought.
Humans are very interesting. Humans are very interesting creatures, right? We're very complicated people, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I ever had any sort of like, I never had like any goals. I never had any like direction I was moving. It was just existing. It wasn't until I came like to recovery that I like had a goal.
Purpose.
Like a goal, like an actual goal that I completed. Like not just one, but several.
Yeah.
You know, and so now it's like, you know, I went in the beginning, like on a court card, I just wanted to not get loaded anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to be able to look at myself in the mirror. I wanted to be able to be a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't know how that, like, it happened so fast. Like I said, my kids were about almost 7 and 9. And I remember thinking, I've been trying to get clean since the day I found out I was pregnant with the first one.
Yeah.
And it's been 9 years. Like, how does that happen so fast?
Yeah. It's like a blink of an eye.
Like this, you know? And I remember thinking, like, my parents, like, where are my parents? What if my parents were sick?
Mm-hmm.
Would anyone call me? Would they even know where to find me?
Right.
Would I be allowed at the funeral?
Yeah.
Like, I just, all that stuff hit me all at once. And that's when I was like, I can't do this anymore, you know? And I just started to kind of like, I don't know, I guess, like they say, peeling the onion, you know, more will be revealed. All those, I thought people were a bunch of weirdos for sure when I first came. Like, I was like, these people are crazy. There's no way any of this stuff is going to work.
Yeah.
You're super closed-minded at first, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to meditate. I'm not a hippie. I'm not going to hug in trees and weird stuff like that. Like, I just thought there's no way. These people are ridiculous.
For me, my experience was like, I didn't feel worthy of the help, you know, like they wanted to help me. I've been around the rooms a few different times for a few different motivations, you know, like it was either the courts or DCFS. Mm-hmm. And finally I was just whooped, you know, I was completely whooped. And I was willing to hear people out, willing to try another way. So thank you, Wendi. I got one more question for you before we wrap it up.
You bet.
You have an amazing story. That's crazy. If you could give somebody who's had the same experiences, or a woman that's still using, or maybe she's just starting out, some advice, what would that be?
I don't know. I think we don't really have the ability, like, to know what we're capable of. Like I said, I was just existing. I didn't have goals. I didn't have like a direction. You know, like I wasn't growing. I didn't have any like desire to like learn how to communicate with another individual like effectively.
Yeah, or healthily.
Yeah. You know, like they're like effective communication. Like it's okay to talk about certain things. Like we don't know. Like you just have no idea what you're capable of if you don't try. Mm-hmm. You know, and like I think the biggest thing for me as a woman, as a mother, you know, like I can't get that. Don't make me cry. I can't get that time back. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't experience my child growing up. Like I don't have that. Like I said, she got taken away when she was 2 months old. Like that emotional connection, I don't have that with her the same way I do with my younger daughter, because she has that with my sister. Yeah. You know, and like you can never get that stuff back. Like once it's gone, it's gone. Time doesn't go in reverse. Yeah. Like this is it. This is all we get. We get one shot at this thing, right? No one gets out of here alive.
Yeah, that's true.
None of us do, you know, and tomorrow's not promised. Yeah. Like, and there's no like guarantee of what time we have, you know, and it's worth it. You know, it's hard. Yeah. Like maybe because my birthday's coming up, I just have a lot of like things happening in my life. Like there's still so much more to be uncovered, you know, like emotionally and things like that. Like sometimes I still break down, but still better than being on the streets and being like just sick and not even able to really like function. You know, at least today I have everything I need. I have a peace inside of me. I've never trusted a man in my whole life. Like I have a man that is in the same program, that works steps, that tries, you know, equally as hard. And, it's like I've just never experienced inside. I've always felt different. Yeah. I've always felt off, you know, but now I feel like whole, almost all the way whole inside, you know, like whatever that hole is that we look to fill with outside sources that will never be enough. Like it's starting to get smaller, you know, and it's like whatever you've done, like it doesn't matter. You still deserve like a second chance, like everyone does. Yeah. You know, I guarantee you, if someone's done the same or worse. Guaranteed. You know, it's like if someone like me could get clean and do all these amazing things, like sometimes I have to pinch myself. Yeah. Like there's no way this is my life. No way. if we can do it, anyone can do it.
Yep.
It's hard.
All right. Well, thank you, Wendi. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you improvising with the situation. And
oh yeah, we miss you, Adam.
yeah, Adam. So if there's anybody that you feel could benefit from hearing Wendy's message, please send it to them and tune in next week.
I just hope my time's right, lost up in the limelight, but you'll never know unless you walked up in my shoes.
As someone who struggled with addiction in the past, how does it feel to be able to give hope to others who are still struggling now?
You know, it's such an honor to be able to hear other people's experiences of life, to see how when faced with the very thing that was sent to destroy you, kill you, and take you off forever didn't, but rather you have been given a second chance to give hope and be a light for those who are still in the dark. So don't be afraid to share your message to the world. You never know whose life you might be saving.